the testimony from the defendant. Did it help him or hurt him, Jesse?
I don't think he was overly sympathetic in terms of I've seen with other cases. I don't think he really needed to be, right? Everything he said, or the majority of what he said, was corroborated by the tape. I'd be having a totally different conversation if there was no tape here. But when he talks about being surrounded, when he talks about being hit, when he talks about people around him, I mean, you see it in the tape. Now, I will tell you, he had no choice but to admit that he lied. He had nowhere else to go. I think at the end of the day, the last thing that you said, the lower included, the lesser included, I do not see this him being convicted of first-degree intentional homicide.
No way.
Could he be found guilty of like a lesser charge, like reckless homicide? Maybe, but also this could be a mistrial. This might tear the jury up.
Vinoo?
Well, look, I have to agree with Jesse to an extent, which is that a conviction of the top charge will be very difficult. That being said, that jury knows that there's a dead body, there's a dead kid, and with the family in the courtroom, the prosecutor saying everything he's saying, and to some extent there is some validity to what under Wisconsin law, is about walking away when given the chance. So the jury will feel some need, an emotional need, to try to give something to the family, and a conviction on a lesser included is probably what is going to happen.
I don't know. I mean, well, I want to play a little quickly, and because I want to play. Let me play another. This is more of the testimony. Here he is. This is number 3. Him talking about his fear scale. Right? How scared was he? And again, I'd like to, if we can, while we're playing this, also play some of the moments when he's pushed down into the water. Here he is talking about how scared he was at that moment.
Do you remember how you felt when you fell back into the water?
I was, number one, I was stunned. That's why I fell backwards. I was very afraid, of course.
On this fear scale that you've talked about before, where are you on that scale from 0 to 10?
Right at the top, 10.
Have you ever been at that 10 before in your life?
Never been in a situation like this or a fight in my life.
Have you ever been at a 10?
Never.
I don't know. Vinoo, a guy gets heckled, he gets pushed, and they surround him, and there's a whole bunch of kids. I mean, it seems like a classic self-defense case.
I agree with you both from a moral and a legal perspective. The problem is that these juries feel like they need to help the state. And like you have a dead body here, you have the state saying...
Well, there's a dead body in every self-defense case.
There's something you're not considering, Vinoo, the jury. It's majority older men.
Let's pull that up. Number 30.
There's one guy in his 90s.
There's a guy in his 90s?
There's a guy in his 90s.
All right, well, because on the thing that I saw, let's put up our graphic of the jury, 8 men, 6 women, 2 jurors in their 20s, 1 juror 30s, 3 in their 40s, 3 in their 50s, 1 juror in their 60s. Oh, there it is.
1 juror in the 90s.
Yeah, look, that's on my next page. Yes,
look, I think when you look at that, they say, well, if I was put in that position, right? He didn't go out, take the knife, start swinging it at people. He calls people to come over. He's actually really silent on the video, and they're the ones who call him a rapist. They're the raper. They're the ones who surround him. They're the ones who yell at him. You have the guy videotaping the whole thing, and then these witnesses on the stand. Look, this is terrible what had happened, but with these people on the stand, and they're caught into a hard corner saying, why were you doing this to him?
Listen, I agree with you from both your positions. What I'm saying is that jury, knowing that there's a dead kid, not just any dead body, Dan, but a teenager. The women, there's at least 6 women, some of them in their middle ages. You're going to be looking at this.
Well, this is why you could have a hung jury, because it could divide based on age. I mean, it's funny because, you know, you watch the difference in the reaction on social media, right? It's more the TikTok crew more wants to see him convicted. And you see more on Facebook and some of the older social media, X and Twitter, people saying, classic self-defense.
Whenever we look at Long Crimes feed and our viewers, that's kind of a good segment. What would the jury think? Majority of them side with Nicolae Miu. And these are people who were following the case as much as the jury was, looking at every piece of evidence. So I think that is something.
So if that's the case, how can he get convicted?
Well, they might say, look, maybe the initial stab,
I understand.
Completely.
I know. I understand.
But maybe keep going after people.
But I'm just saying, and I saw another poll which had 55% of people who were watching the case supporting him. How do you get a unanimous jury to convict this guy?
Yeah,
if those are the numbers.
Agree to a lesser included.
Maybe.
Just to give the prosecution something.
Maybe.
They're going to be parents on that jury.
That's possible.
And
like a
they're going to.
Yeah,
they're going to say, look, let's give this guy something. And I think from a legal perspective, he get cleared on appeal, but he's going to get something.
And by the way, even the lowest charge is 25 years in prison. I mean, you're talking about a potential of that. So all of the lesser includeds are quite serious. It's just what is the level of his criminal liability.
I think hung jury is still a very real possibility here. No way there's going to be a conviction on murder.
The first-degree intentional homicide. I don't see it either.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.